Jamal Carter, 22, stood at the gas station counter, counting out change for a bottle of Gatorade. Sweat still clung to his skin from basketball practice. His muscles sore, but his mind at ease. He was a good kid, never one to start trouble. He had dreams, ambitions. His mother, Evelyn Carter, had raised him to be respectful, to know when to stand tall and when to walk away. But in this town, being black meant you didn't always get a choice. Outside, officers Mitchell and Barnes sat in their patrol car, sipping stale coffee, looking for someone to hassle. It was a routine for them. Stop a black man, rough him up, remind him who really held the power. When they saw Jamal step out of the store, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, they made their decision. Barnes tapped the dashboard. That one, let's check him. Jamal barely had time to unlock his car before the red and blue lights flashed behind him. Hands where we can see them. Jamal froze, turning slowly. What's the problem, officer? Mitchell stepped forward, a smirk pulling at his lips. You match the description of a suspect. The lie was as old as time. Jamal exhaled sharply. Man, I just got out of practice. I don't have time for this. But it didn't matter what he said. Barnes grabbed his wrist. Jamal jerked back on instinct. And that's all they needed. The escalation was instant. Mitchell's hand flew to his holster, his voice sharp. Don't move. Jamal raised his hands. I'm not. Bang! Bang! His body jerked. He stumbled back, eyes wide in disbelief. He clutched his chest at deep, wet stains spreading across his hoodie. Hey, he looked at Mitchell, confusion and betrayal mixing in his fading gaze. You can't do this to me. His knees buckled. He hit the pavement. By the time his head hit the ground, he was already gone. Mitchell breathed heavily, his hands still gripping the gun. He looked at Barnes. Barnes looked at him. No panic, no regret, just calculation. Mitchell reached down and switched off his body cam. He reached for something. Barnes nodded. Yeah, self-defense. That was it. Another black body on the pavement, another cover-up in the making. Evelyn Carter had seen war. She had lived through battles, outmaneuvered enemies, survived impossible odds. But no battlefield had ever felt as terrifying as the sterile white walls of the police station. She stood at the front desk, fingers gripping the edge of the counter so tightly they ached. I need to see my son. The officer behind the desk barely looked up. Ma'am, we can't release details at this time. A cold, bureaucratic response. Evelyn's pulse pounded in her ears. Tell me where my son is. A door opened. A senior officer stepped out, his expression carefully neutral. Miss Carter, I'm sorry. There was an incident. Your son. She didn't hear the rest. The words crashed over her like a tidal wave. The world tilted. Her son, her only son. She had trained him to be strong, to be careful, to survive. But even she couldn't prepare him for this. She didn't scream, didn't break down. Instead, she sat in the hard plastic chair of the waiting room, staring at the blood-stained hoodie they placed in her hands. She ran her fingers over the fabric, feeling the weight of it, the last thing he ever wore. Her lips barely moved, but the words came out anyway. I trained him to survive everything, except this. Her hands trembled. Then they stilled. Because she knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't over. Evelyn sat in her dimly lit living room, Jamal's hoodie draped across her lap like a second skin. The house was silent, yet it felt louder than any war zone she had ever been in. The echoes of his laughter, the ghost of his presence, it all clawed at her like a slow-burning fire. The police report came in the next day. Suspect was aggressive. Officers feared for their safety. No body cam footage available. Case closed. Case closed. Two words that suffocated her like a noose tightening around her throat. The media barely touched the story. Just another tragic encounter between law enforcement and a black man. The town whispered, but did nothing. Black families mourned in silence. White neighbors turned away. Fear kept them frozen. But Evelyn wasn't afraid. She had fought wars in countries most people couldn't pronounce. She had outsmarted warlords, taken down insurgents, and built strategies that toppled entire networks of crime. And yet none of her training had prepared her for the grief that burned inside her now. This wasn't just sorrow. This was rage. She pressed her hands against Jamal's hoodie, her voice a whisper, low and steady. "You took my son's life. I'll take everything you have." At exactly 4:30 a.m., Evelyn woke up. No alarm, just instinct. Years of military discipline kicking in. She sat at the dining table, a black notebook in front of her. Her hands moved methodically as she wrote names, routines, patterns, weaknesses. Officer Mitchell drinks every Friday at Lucky's bar, smokes after every shift, has a mistress his wife doesn't know about. Officer Barnes wakes up at 5 a.m. for his morning jog, never takes the same route twice, except on Sundays. That's the only day he runs by the creek. Loves being seen as the good cop. They weren't ghosts, they were men, and men had vulnerabilities. She flipped to another page. The police chief, the district attorney, the city council. Who protects them? Who funds them? Who fears them? One by one, she would find the cracks in their armor. Evelyn didn't rush. Revenge was like chess. Strike too early, and you lose the game. She started small. Information first, action later. She followed Mitchell home one night, sat 2 blocks down with the lights off, watching. He stumbled out of his truck, reeking of whiskey. Evelyn noted the way his hands trembled when he reached for his keys. Weakness #1, alcohol. Barnes prided himself on being the clean cop. He ran the community watch meetings, shook hands, smiled for the press. Evelyn attended one of his meetings, sat right in the front row. When Barnes's eyes swept the crowd, they locked onto hers, just for a second. She held the stare, didn't blink. He looked away first. Weakness #2, guilt. She left a single bullet casing on Mitchell's windshield. No note, no explanation. Just a reminder. For Barnes, she was more subtle. A letter in his mailbox, no threats, just a single line typed in black ink. He was unarmed. By the time the sun rose, Evelyn was already back home, sitting at the dining table marking the next steps. She wouldn't use violence yet. She didn't need to. Because fear was always the first weapon. The real war didn't start with gunfire. It started with silence. Evelyn knew how to break men, not through force, but through fear. The kind that gnawed at their insides, kept them awake at night, made them question every shadow, every sound. She had seen stronger men than Mitchell and Barnes fall apart under the weight of their own paranoia. And now, it was their turn. Friday night, 11:37 p.m. The neon sign outside Lucky's bar flickered weakly as Officer Mitchell stumbled out, half drunk, his uniform shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He liked the attention, the free drinks, the way people treated him like he was untouchable. Tonight was no different until he reached his truck. He swore under his breath when he saw it. All 4 tires, slashed, deep, clean cuts, a professional's work. Then he saw it. A single bullet casing sitting on the hood. No note, no message, just metal glinting under the streetlight. His drunken haze evaporated. His throat went dry. He turned around sharply, scanning the empty parking lot. Nothing. But suddenly, the night didn't feel so quiet anymore. Barnes wasn't like Mitchell. He wasn't reckless, wasn't a bully, but he was weak, a man who followed orders, even when they were wrong. And that's why Evelyn knew he would break first. Sunday morning, 5:12 a.m. Barnes stepped outside for his usual jog. The air was crisp, the sky just beginning to turn from black to deep blue. He stretched, adjusted his headphones, and opened his mailbox out of habit. He froze. Inside, folded neatly, was a single piece of paper. Typed in bold black ink. He was unarmed. His pulse spiked. He spun around, searching the street. His quiet suburban neighborhood, suddenly too quiet. His wife called from inside. "Everything okay?" He forced a smile, folding the paper quickly. "Yeah, just junk mail." But as he jogged down the street, his rhythm was off. His heart pounded too fast. For the first time in years, he felt like he was the one being watched. By Monday, Mitchell was on edge. He showed up to work late, snapping at officers, checking over his shoulder. Barnes stopped jogging. He started locking his doors twice at night, peeking out the curtains, jumping at every little noise. Evelyn watched from a distance, unseen, unheard, always there. They thought they were untouchable. She was teaching them otherwise. Fear was setting in. Now Evelyn would turn that fear into fire. She had spent weeks watching, waiting, breaking them piece by piece. Now it was time to bring the whole town into the war. Mitchell and Barnes had spent years hiding behind their badges. She would make sure there was nowhere left to hide. Late one night, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table, laptop open, files spread across the surface. She had been collecting information since the night Jamal died. Digging, searching, watching. And now she had everything she needed. Complaint reports, internal memos, cases where Mitchell and Barnes had walked away clean. She uploaded them anonymously, sent them to journalists, community activists, social media pages. Within hours, the headlines started appearing. Bayfield officers have long history of racial violence. Internal reports revealed disturbing pattern. Jamal Carter's killing wasn't an isolated incident. Officers previously accused of excessive force. The internet caught fire. Names were exposed, faces were shared. Mitchell and Barnes weren't just random cops anymore. They were symbols of everything wrong with the system. And the town? The town could no longer look away. By the weekend, people took to the streets. Marches, signs, chants, justice for Jamal. Evelyn stood in the crowd, hood up, silent, watching. Barnes's house was vandalized. Murderer spray-painted across his fence. His wife took the kids and left town for a break. Mitchell, he stopped showing up to work. Mitchell drank more than usual. The bar that once treated him like a hero now whispered behind his back. He saw his name in the headlines, saw his own mugshot on protest signs. For the first time in his life, he wasn't in control. And Barnes? He was cracking even faster. He told his wife they should leave town, start over somewhere new. But it was too late for that. The whole world was watching now. And Evelyn? She watched them drown in their own guilt. They thought I was just another grieving mother, she whispered to herself, Jamal's hoodie still in her hands. They forgot who I used to be. Mitchell had always been the one in control, a bully with a badge, the kind of man who never had to answer for his actions. Until now. Tonight, he wasn't a cop, he was prey. Friday night, 2:47 a.m. Mitchell stumbled out of Lucky's bar, half drunk, barely able to keep his balance. He reached for his truck door. That's when he felt it. A cold, sharp sting at the back of his neck. Darkness. When he woke up, everything was different. Mitchell's head throbbed. His wrists burned where the zip ties cut into his skin. He tried to move. He couldn't. His breath quickened. He was tied to a chair, blindfolded. The air smelled of rust, oil, dust, an abandoned warehouse. Then a voice, low, calm, steady. How does it feel? Mitchell tensed. The voice circled him. Slow, unshaken. How does it feel to have no power? His breath came in short gasps now, his hands clenched into fists. Then the sound started. A small speaker clicked on. A recording played. You can't do this to me. Mitchell froze. His stomach dropped. You can't do this to me. The same words, over and over. Jamal's voice, his last words. Mitchell thrashed against the chair. Who are you? The blindfold was ripped away, and there she stood, Evelyn Carter. Not crying, not grieving, just staring at him. Like a soldier, like a hunter. She leaned in, voice like ice. You killed my son and walked away like it was nothing. She tilted her head. Now you know what nothing feels like. She pressed a knife to his throat, just enough to make his skin tremble. Then she stepped back and cut the zip ties. Mitchell collapsed to the floor, gasping, shaking. Evelyn stood over him, unmoving, unafraid. Go! Mitchell scrambled to his feet, stumbling out the door. The moment he hit the cold night air, he vomited. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Because for the first time in his life, he finally understood fear. Fear was a powerful thing. It could make men feel invincible. But when turned against them, it could make them crumble. Mitchell had spent his whole life believing he was untouchable. Now he couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't walk down the street without feeling eyes on him. Because he knew she was still out there, watching, waiting. And worse, he knew he deserved it. It happened on a Monday morning. Mitchell walked into the police station, his uniform wrinkled, dark circles under his bloodshot eyes. The entire department turned as he stepped forward. His voice shook. I want to confess. Murmurs, stares. His captain's face turned pale. Confess to what? Mitchell swallowed hard. We murdered Jamal Carter. Silence. He was unarmed. He didn't do anything wrong. We killed him, and we covered it up. The words left his mouth like broken glass. And just like that, the lie they had built, the shield that had protected them for years, shattered. The town finally saw the truth. And this time, they couldn't ignore it. Barnes saw the news while packing a bag. His hands shook as he zipped it shut. He had planned everything. A quick escape, a new name, a fresh start. But by the time he reached his car, they were already there. The FBI. James Barnes stepped out of the vehicle. His knees buckled. His escape was over before it even started. And the whole town was watching. Evelyn sat on her porch, Jamal's hoodie still draped over her shoulders. The wind carried the sound of the breaking news bulletin. Bayfield officer confesses to unarmed killing, federal investigation open. Protest turned to celebration as justice finally takes its course. She took a slow sip of her coffee, staring at the headlines. Her hands trembled slightly. Not from grief this time, not from rage, from relief, from knowing she kept her promise. Jamal wasn't just another forgotten name. She exhaled, whispering softly. They didn't win this time. The town had changed. Not in ways that people could always see. The buildings were the same, the streets still cracked with old scars. But there was something different in the air. A shift. A whisper of a story that no one dared speak too loudly. Some feared her, some respected her. But no one could ignore Evelyn Carter. She had torn the mask off the system, dragged the truth into the light, and now the town was left to reckon with what they had allowed for so long. Evelyn sat in her living room, the dim glow of the lamp casting long shadows. Jamal's hoodie lay folded in her lap. She ran her fingers over the worn fabric, feeling every crease, every faded thread. It still smelled like him. She wasn't the same woman she had been before. She had always been a soldier, a strategist, but this had never been war. This had been something deeper. A mother's fight. And now, it was over. Justice had come, not by mercy, but by force. She closed her eyes, gripping the hoodie tightly. I told you, baby, they didn't get away with it. The wind outside howled through the trees, like a voice whispering back. Somewhere in the distance, she swore she could hear Jamal's laughter.